Hello and welcome to a very special trade deadline edition of Hockey Talking. My name is Clay. Thank you for tuning in. The NHL's trade deadline has come and gone, and the Blackhawks made some moves. 4 trades to be exact, the most out of any team in the league. And we're going to cover all of them in this video. Now, the Blackhawks did make some moves leading up to trade deadline day. A couple moves with the Florida Panthers, brought in guys like Vinny Hinostroza, Brett Connolly, and Riley Stillman, but we're just going to focus on the trades that actually happened on the day of the deadline in this video. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, heading into the trade deadline, there were some moves that we were expecting the Hawks to make. Probably going to trade Mattias Janmark, probably going to trade Carl Soderberg. There was some talks about potentially Kampf getting some interest, Zadorov getting some interest. But the first trade of the day ended up catching people by surprise. The Blackhawks would start off the day trading Matthew Highmore to the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for 24-year-old 6'1" centerman Adam Gaudette. Yes, that's the trade. 1-for-1. I know, crazy. Great start. Matthew Highmore just kind of fell out of favor of the Blackhawks lineup this year, just kind of became expendable due to the emergence of some other young players. He was a good scorer in the AHL, but never really found his groove in the NHL. Just 10 points in 73 games over the course of 3 seasons. Hopefully this trade is one of those kind of change of scenery type of deals for him and he can find his way in Vancouver. But definitely excited to get Adam Gaudette in return on this trade. I definitely think the Hawks got the better end of this particular deal. Now, like Brett Connolly, Gaudette hasn't really had a great year this year. He's also had COVID this year, so that certainly hasn't helped. But last year, he was pretty decent. 33 points in 59 games. The Hawks are hoping he can get back to that level. Now, we'll see how much Gaudette actually plays for the Hawks this season. He is coming off COVID, and he is traveling from Vancouver, so he will have to quarantine at least a little bit. Nonetheless, though, he will be a restricted free agent after this season, so the Hawks will have the rights to re-sign him if they want to keep him for next season and beyond. And in essence, this down year that he's having this year might actually be a blessing in disguise for the Blackhawks. It may allow them to re-sign him for a little bit lower of a cap hit than maybe they would have had to if he would have kept his pace from last season. Certainly, they're hoping he gets back to that previous season pace. And even though the point numbers aren't there this year for him, the underlying analytic numbers still suggest he is creating a lot of scoring chances, creating a lot of opportunities. So the hope that he gets back to his previous level of play, I think, is pretty positive. And if he does get back to that level, well, that's going to be quite the steal of a deal. The next trade the Blackhawks made ended up being a bit more of an expected trade. The Blackhawks trading away Carl Soderberg to a familiar team, a former team of his. Blackhawks trading him to the Colorado Avalanche in exchange for Josh Dickinson and Ryder Rolston. Josh Dickinson is a 23-year-old 6'2" centerman who's been splitting time between the AHL and the ECHL, so not really a whole lot there as a return for Carl Soderberg, just kind of more of a organizational depth piece, if you will. I would say the return for Soderberg is more with the other player in this deal, Ryder Rolston, who was a 19-year-old winger, former 5th-round pick of the Avalanche, just finished up his freshman year at the University of Notre Dame. You know Stan Bowman. He loves his Notre Dame players. Teammate of fellow Blackhawks prospect Landon Slaggert, who just won gold with Team USA at the World Juniors this past winter. We'll see if Ryder amounts to anything, but regardless, I would say think of this trade as Carl Soderberg for a 5th-round pick. And when you think about it that way, like, that's about right in terms of value. It's one of those trades where it's better to get something now than, keep Soderberg and then get nothing for him before he leaves this offseason. The next trade the Blackhawks made during trade deadline day was another expected trade in the sense that we were expecting the Hawks to trade Mattias Janmark, and, well, they did. Blackhawks trade Mattias Janmark to the Vegas Golden Knights, retaining 50% of his salary. Now, this was a 3-team trade. San Jose kind of entered this trade to help retain even more of Janmark's salary, but I'm just going to focus on the pieces that went to Vegas from Chicago and what came to Chicago from Vegas. So Mattias Janmark and a 5th round pick next year to the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for a 2nd round pick this year and a 3rd round pick next year. So yeah, pretty darn good return for Mattias Janmark. Hawks pretty much got more for Janmark than Buffalo got for Hall, so can't really complain there. Sure, the Hawks had to retain some salary in Janmark's deal, but it's just for the end of this season, which there's not much left of, and the Blackhawks have a crap ton of cap space, so they can easily do it. It's pretty much nothing. In addition to that, Hawks now have 2 2nd-round picks for this upcoming entry-level draft and 2 3rd-round picks for next year's entry-level draft. So the Hawks could make some draft picks with those picks, some potential decent players for the future, or they could use those extra 2nd and 3rd-round picks to use in trades to get some good future players. So Blackhawks, they have some firepower, some ammo for their future. Pretty darn good asset management with Janmark signing him to a cheap 1-year deal this past offseason and offloading him during the trade deadline. I mean, what more can you ask for? To finish off the day, the Blackhawks would make one final trade with the Vancouver Canucks once again, this time sending defenseman Madison Bowey and a 5th round pick to Vancouver in exchange for a 4th round pick. Now, if you completely forgot about Madison Bowey, I don't blame you. Blackhawks signed him back in late January, and he only played 2 games for the Hawks. Basically, he was only signed to eventually be exposed in the Seattle expansion draft this summer. But apparently, Hawks don't think they need him for that anymore, and so they were willing to part ways with him, and now Vancouver can use him for that if they choose to. Blackhawks essentially used him to move up from a 5th round pick to a 4th round pick with this, and so seems all right to me. So those are your 4 trades the Blackhawks made on trade deadline day. Looking at them all, gotta say, can't really complain all that much. Pretty darn good day by Stan Bowman and the Chicago Blackhawks organization, gaining a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, and a potentially really good bottom 6 center. Pretty good. Now, just as a reminder, just because the trade deadline has come and passed, that doesn't mean teams can no longer trade. The Blackhawks could still make trades the rest of the season. The only thing now is that any player traded at this point would not be eligible to play in the playoffs. That's really the main point of the trade deadline. It doesn't tell you that you can't make any more trades after it. It just means that the players who are involved in those trades just can't play in the playoffs. But anyhow, I'd love to know what you guys think about the trades that the Blackhawks made on trade deadline day. Leave them down in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate that as always. But most importantly, stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you next time.